there's a thing called the art of correcting your children. It's also a skill. It's like a scientific methodology that you can learn and teach. And I recall that one of the very famous philosophers, a French philosopher, Voltaire, so he said a very, very befitting and a very appropriate thing. He said that whenever you need to criticize someone, whenever you need to critique someone, start off by first praising that person or by acknowledging some of his good points. Because now, when you do that, the other person will think that you are his well-wisher.
I have seen so many parents that while we're sitting in guest, they will be scolding their child. For example, if especially in case where there is something going on between families and that, yeah, you said something to my mother, I'm not going to talk to you. And parents are really nice in the diplomacy, being adults, that they will pay salam and greet properly, but the child is having grudge. Another reason of why you should not quarrel in front of children.
Whenever you need to correct your child, don't do it in public. Don't start scolding or correcting him or her in public, because that's going to damage his self-esteem. And self-esteem is something that is dear to every person.
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Saleem.
Wa alaikum assalam.
How are you?
Alhamdulillah, I'm fine.
Okay, so last time we had a really interesting conversation about parenting, and we learned different things about how parents are the role model for their children and how they should become what they want their children, their child to be. And we ended up our last discussion on how do the way a parent rebukes their child impacts on it. So I would start our conversation from there. So I have seen so many parents that while we're sitting in guest, they will be scolding their child. For example, if especially in case where there is something going on between families and that, yeah, you said something to my mother, I'm not going to talk to you. And parents are really nice in the diplomacy, being adults, that they will pay salam and greet properly, but the child is having grudge. Another reason of why you should not quarrel in front of children. So now, for example, if everyone is meeting and a child does not pay salam, or maybe that, even if you leave this example, if a child is not talking properly, what will the mother say? Say sorry to aunt, say sorry to uncle. Don't you know how to this is how I raise you? Don't you know how to treat adults? And what happens is, being a child, what I have noticed over there, in that situation, what a child goes through is the child is not saying, oh, I made a mistake, I should correct it. They're like, I'm being insulted. I'm being humiliated in public, in front of my cousins. What would they be thinking? And instead of making amends, a child gets arrogant, or more like gets really defensive would be a better word. And they will get strict to their previous behavior that, no, I am not going to do this. So now what happens? The parent now feels that they're being humiliated and what's going on in the family. So now they will either get harsh and there will be a really awful situation. So maybe what I feel, being a child, that what parents should do in that place, that ignore it. Because what has happened cannot be undone. Everyone is going to talk about your daughter that she messed up in that situation. Nothing is going to undo it. Now when she goes back home, you can sit, instead of having a bad start, say that, look, we went over there, how did you meet the auntie? How did you greet? Should you have done it or not? Or why did you do this? Instead of saying you did wrong, ask them why did they do this, and then make correction within that according to their why. So what is your thought on it?
Well, I think that this again is something that has to be very, very well articulated and understood, that there's this thing called the art of correcting your children. It's also a skill. It's like a scientific methodology that you can learn and teach. And I recall that one of the very famous philosophers, a French philosopher, Voltaire, so he said a very, very befitting and a very appropriate thing. He said that whenever you need to criticize someone, whenever you need to critique someone, start off by first praising that person or by acknowledging some of his good points. Because now, when you do that, the other person will think that you are his well-wisher. And then he'll or she'll be in the right perspective, in the right frame of mind, and a recipient and a receiver to whatever criticism that you need to offer. So the first thing, I think, here, as Voltaire has said, that if you have to critique your child, if you have to correct your child, start off by praising what he has done right. I mean, every child has some positive points. Every child has some achievements. Tell your child that, well, you're a very good boy, you're a very good girl, you have achieved such and such a distinction. For example, I mean, anything that the child has done in a very outstanding way. As soon as you do that, it boosts the confidence of the child. You see, this is also that art of appreciation that we need to actually understand, that appreciating other people by telling them what they have done right or what they have done in a very good way, it really encourages them, it motivates them. And if you'd ask me, I think it's the need of every human being, let alone a child, because it really makes you understand and makes you motivated to do even greater things. So start off by, I would say, telling your child how a good boy or a good girl he or she is, and all examples can be given. And as you also said, the second important, I would say, area here is that whenever you need to correct your child, don't do it in public. Don't start scolding or correcting him or her in public, because that's going to damage his self-esteem. And self-esteem is something that is dear to every person. And in younger children, when you damage their self-esteem, what happens is that they become stubborn. They become angry as well. And you don't let them, you don't give them the time to realize and absorb the critique, because you see now they're in public and their defense mechanism immediately turns on. So the second important, I would say, institute of correction is that always do it in a private space. Call the child to your own self, ask him what happened, give your own opinion, tell the child that this is what the right thing should have been, or maybe, you have all these wise things to say, but that has to be done in a very, very private space.
Yes.
The third thing that I would say is also very important is that you need to analyze why the mistake has been made in itself. At times what happens is that your child is a slow learner, or maybe he or she is making a mistake which has a background. For example, if he or she is a slow learner, it could be because the teacher is not teaching correctly, or the teacher is not appropriate for that subject. It could be that the child himself or herself has attention deficit disorder. That's also something that children have, especially the gadgets that have now invaded our homes. That's another point that we have to discuss sometime. But you see, the analysis of the mistake has to be done, and it has to be presented in a very calm way that, well, this is something at the background. And the fourth thing I would say is that we must not be repetitive in our correction. I have seen mothers, when they see their children in the morning, the first question they will ask is, did you brush your teeth? Did you comb your hair? And then just about after 5 minutes, the question would be repeated and repeated again and again. So it's like a nauseating thing, that why would you do the same thing again and again?
Because you can see I have not brushed my hair.
If you've seen that, so it's better not to make the person realize, because yes, that's something. So it would be perhaps much better that you play your role maybe, or let the child realize that this is something that is important for school as well. And if you don't do it, obviously, as an untidy child to school, that would be something that you might be even penalized of. So I think the thing is that repetitive correction is something that has to be understood. Another important point is that we have to understand that making a mistake is part of learning as well. You just cannot be perfectionists. However much you might grow up, you will still end up in making a mistake. So as a parent, you must not be ambitious that your child is not going to make a mistake. Always think that your child is going to make a mistake. And I think, if you ask me, one of the most important measures to gauge whether a parent is successful or not, you know what that is? That is that the child, as soon as he or she makes a mistake, he does not go to anyone else. He comes directly to the parents and confesses that, well, today I did this bad thing and I'm not feeling good about it, and I'd like your advice. And you embrace your child, and instead of scolding your child, you say, okay, let's sit together, let's analyze, and inshallah we'll get it over with. And we'll try to improve upon ourselves. So I think some of these measures, if they are adopted. Another thing that I would point out here is that another bad practice on the part of our parents, especially when they're correcting their children, is that they start calling them with pet names which are offensive. Oh fatty, oh shorty, or whatever the physical stature of your child, you start actually distorting that physical stature by calling names. That also should not happen, because you see, that also hurts. It hurts very badly. So, making your child realize that Mistakes are not a big deal. I mean, everyone can make mistakes. The only thing is how to overcome those mistakes. And at the same time, I think another very important thing that might be helpful for parents, which I normally suggest, is that you analyze the personality type of your child. You see, every child has a personality type. Some are aggressive, some are reticent, some are introverts, some are extroverts, some are, very naughty, some are very shy. So you see, not every child is going to behave the same way. And you should not deal every child in the same way as well. So first of all, see who your child is, the type of behavior he or she would put up. And accordingly, it's like something that you have to first gauge the personality and then maybe go about correcting them. For example, children who are shy, they will not easily come out to you. Yes. They will not express themselves, and you need to make them express themselves. Similarly, children who are very aggressive. I remember one of my teachers had this very, very funny way and very effective way of controlling aggressive children in the class. So the most aggressive child would be made the monitor of the class. He would be made the in charge, because now you need to control your aggression. So as soon as you become the in charge, you cannot behave in a loose way, in an irresponsible way. So the most aggressive child would end up becoming the most responsible child, because now he's minding the class. So see, these are small tips that we have to learn and understand, and at the end of the day realize that we have to always give this I would say leverage to your child, that he will have a different personality than yours. What happens is that we see our own personality in the child and we start to control it. So one of the things that parents need to understand is what we normally say is to learn to let go. Once your child is an adult, he's a young adult, then you have to understand that this is the time that your child has developed in a form of a human being, with new worldviews, with religious views, with political views, how to dress, how to talk. So now he is answerable or she is answerable to God directly. You're not responsible for your child. So let your child be independent. Let him or her have an independent personality. If you try to control that personality, if you would like to impose your ideas on your child, that's not a wise thing to do, because as I said, this is something which, God creates in a way that no two human beings are alike. But one would expect that maybe born in a family, maybe people are alike. But we know that even in a family, two siblings are so different from one another. So this is how God works. So that liberty which a person should naturally be given at a certain time, I think that is something that we parents, especially the Desi parents, we don't realize. We impose ourselves upon them, we control their lives. Even very small things as what to wear, what color to wear, where to go, what time to sleep. Let me relate to you a very interesting incident. So I have a very chirpy niece. She's now 16, but I'm going to tell you a small incident when she was just about 6 years old or 5 years old. So she was a very chirpy and a very, very buoyant and a vibrant young child. So once she was visiting us on Eid, and I saw her just in a corner, not talking, very shy, looking a little annoyed, irritated, agitated. And I just said, okay, I'll ask her when there's no one around. So I just had this time to ask her. I sneaked to her and said, Beta, what's going on? What's happening? And after a little conversation, I got to realize that she was wearing a pink dress. And her mother had insisted that it is Eid, you should wear a yellow dress. And she did not like the yellow color. And because the mother had insisted, she was just 6 years old. And the mother thought that, well, because the Eid Jora has been made for her in the yellow color, if she doesn't wear that, it'll just go waste. So she insisted that the child should wear that yellow color dress. So the point is that, you see, it's not just the question that the children, when they become adults, they have their views. In today's times, the culture has changed so much. The impact of the media and so many other things is so profound and so potent that young children, they have their own views. Yes. And at this instant, what good would a mother do if she has to insist whether the child should wear a yellow color dress or a pink color dress? What difference should it make? Because you see, if the child is uncomfortable wearing a particular color, I think the parent should not insist here. But because we Desi parents, we are groomed in a way that we would like to have our own way. And the whole day, that chirpy girl remained miserable. Oh. And until the time she had to take off that dress and wear a new one, she was in the same mood. So I think that controlling nature of our Desi parents is something. I was recently in Australia, and one of our main objectives there was to have conversations with young children and their parents, and the communication gap that has developed amongst them because of the fact that you see that independence, that expression of your own will is something that comes naturally to a person who's born in a free society. But in a Desi society, this is not the case, because now the parents themselves, they grew up in a Desi society in which they were controlled by their parents. So now they have nothing to offer but to control their own children as well. So there results a huge communication gap between them. So we ended up, this session was primarily meant for young adults, but it ultimately ended up talking more to the parents, because I saw, and this is an experience I think many would share and corroborate, that 90% of the fault lies at the parents' end. And they need to be said or told that, look here, what are you doing? It's not the right way. Things that need to be stressed, they are under-stressed. Things that don't need to be stressed, you are stressing them as if they are the real thing. So this balance, again, has left them at times. And I think that, it's just a question of making us realize and making the parents realize that once a child becomes a young adult, he or she is an independent human being. Now, he or she is answerable, whatever the worldview. What happens is that our Desi parents think that normally I'll be held responsible, whatever my child would do. And people will say, look what is going on.
And
look
even
at
in
his
the
family.
day of judgment, I have to answer
I'm
for
going to
everything.
answer. This is not correct. I think it's a gross violation of human rights if you start to control your children, young adults, and think that you are answerable for them. They are an independent personality. They are answerable to God directly. I think as soon as they become young adults, you need to fall back, you need to let go and become goods. People who are going to suggest, and also share their experience. Tell your child, and it's not that you need to withdraw totally. You tell your child that the step that he or she is taking is going to be drastic. It might really affect his or her life badly, and then withdraw. Let them decide ultimately whether they should take that step or not. You can always tell them if it is the wrong step, but don't step.
Instead of just saying that now if you make this mistake, we have nothing to do with one another. I disown you and
That's
everything.
another extreme thing that our parents do, that when they threaten their children. And maybe in some of our future episodes, I would also like to discuss a Quranic verse which is often wrongly used to convey the fact that children have to be obedient to their parents. So that is something also that has to be discussed, because parents use the religion card as well. And they say that, well, I'm not going to talk to you, God is going to be angry with you, and if you disobey me, then this is something which is going to go against Islam, etc. So I think basically we have to understand that this parenting and this grooming and this art of correction, if we are not conversant with it, if we are not well versed with it, the worst result that we would face, and I have seen families and parents facing it, is that you lose your child. The child becomes aggressive, rebellious. He or she would not like to stay with you. If you go in the West, you'll find that children as young as 12 years old, 13 years old, they wish and they would like to move out of their houses, and they normally do, and live independently at such a tender age. And although that has resulted from other causes, but what I'm saying here is that it might be another offshoot of our society as well, because now what happens is that because of the fear factor, many children do things because they fear their parents. Not that they would like to do it, because they fear their parents. And as soon as the parents are not around, they'll just do the opposite.
Yes.
So it's the fear of the parent that is making them do certain things. And this is the most horrific thing for parenting. Why should a person be fearing his parents or her parents and do something as a result of that? It should be your own choice. It should be your own opinion. And this is something which suffers. We don't let the child mentally grow when we start criticizing the child every now and then. When we start telling the child that, well, this is something you should not do. You have to realize the child is experimenting in itself. A 13-year-old or 14-year-old, he's not going to be perfect. And people will never become perfect. So let the child experiment, let him make mistakes, become an advisor to your child, become a friend to your child, spend quality time with your children in a way that you are able to sit and exchange views on a topic of interest related to your child. For example, if your child is is someone who likes soccer, who likes movies on Netflix. You should be aware of what's going on Netflix, maybe, or maybe who are the soccer players that are prominent and who are the teams, so that you can talk to your child regarding those topics. Today, what I see is that there is no common point, and as soon as the children come to the table, there is this. They have the phones with them, and
Yes.
if not the phones, then there is no common conversation
There is an
except
awkward
criticism.
silence.
There's an
Yes.
awkward silence or criticism that what did you do in the morning, what did you do in the afternoon, and why were you not doing this and that. So I think that you have to understand that we are living in the 21st century. It's an age of gadgets. It's an age of rebellion. It's an age of being independent. It's an age of being free. So all these have become norms. Now we have to deal with these norms in a way that they should not in any way cause any awkwardness, any embarrassment to our children, and at the same time they're able to learn.
Thank you so much, Dr. Saleem. Inshallah, we will continue from here in our next session, in which I would really like to explore more aspects of how to deal a teenage child of this age of the 21st century. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.